All right. What do you guys got?
Mike, what's the right size for a playoff?
All right. All right. So I just went through this in the hallway. I'm going to go through this on record. I don't know why you guys ask us. Like, why do you care what we think? Like, it doesn't matter what we think. I've said this before. I think there's two sides to that conversation. I think there's a good of college football where we better be really careful. I don't know why we're trying to become a trophy sport. I don't understand why that's something that we're trying to do. Then there's self-preservation, right? And so if you really ask me on record, what does Mike Elko want? I want 40, because then I'll make it, and then I won't get fired.
But you will if you don't go deep enough if it's 40.
That'll take a few years, and then in a few years we'll readjust, and then I'll want something else. Have you not been around this thing long enough?
What's a trophy sport? Describe that.
I think when you start talking about like, oh, well, this team didn't get in, so we have to expand it. And then this team didn't get in, so we have to expand it more. And then this team didn't get in, so we have to like the cool thing about our sport is it has always been a challenge to get into the playoffs. Every year there are good teams, whether it was 4, whether it's 12. There are good football teams who don't make it. You know, I was in the 4 era at 5 with a really good football team that didn't get in. Last year there were some really good teams that didn't get in. Um, that's okay. We don't have to find a number that lets everybody get in because you just saw it with basketball, right? All of a sudden now 68 isn't enough because there's still some teams getting left out, so we've got to go to 74. Like it's okay to make it hard to get into the playoffs.
Should coach's opinion, you kind of alluded to it, but should coach's opinion matter on this subject or not particularly?
Probably not particularly, honestly. I mean, I don't. None of us are answering for the good of the sport. We're answering for the good of ourselves. Like, the different conferences want what they want because it's the best for them. Different schools in different levels in each league want what they want because, like, why wouldn't it be? It goes back to, yeah. Again, I've said this before. Like, we've got to figure out some type of unified leadership over college football. We're $1 billion industry that's getting governed in a lot of different separate pockets, not with one unified leadership. And until that happens, I don't know how we solve anything.
Speaking of governance, what is it that you're most interested in talking about amongst your peers?
Nothing. Because we have no governance, so who are we talking to?
On the same regards, what is the most important conversations that you feel like you want to have in the meeting?
I don't want to have any.
Mike, how frustrating is that there is no?
I think for the big picture of the sport, it's probably very frustrating. I don't know who is making decisions for the betterment of all. And I think that's really challenging. I think you're seeing this all over the place with every ruling that gets changed, every ruling that goes to court. Like I don't know. Is there ever been an industry like this in the world, in the history of the world? Probably not.
So how do you in a program, I guess, act in your own self-interest in this day and age?
Just by doing that, you act in your own self-interest.
Mike, have you gotten over the pain of the loss to Miami and how that gave you?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the nature of playoffs, right? I think that's one of the things we have to get adjusted to in college athletics is it's now a little bit more of the pro model, right? You're getting 12 in, which means 11 teams are going to end disappointed. And so, yeah, I don't know that you ever get over the sting of it, but I think that's going to be a little bit more the norm now. I think we've transitioned from, half of the teams end their season with a bowl win to now, the emphasis on the playoffs and that kind of being a little bit more of what's really important. And 11 of the 12 teams that make it end with a loss and have to figure out how to fix that in the offseason. So I just think it's a little bit of a shift in what college football is.
With the 9-game schedule, coach, and maintaining the SEC championship game, is there some concern that playing in that championship game is a detriment to a team's chances of winning a national title?
Yeah, I think we have a small sample, but 3 years would tell you it's getting harder to get out of this conference and compete in an elongated playoff. There's no doubt that the NFL showed it again. There's more NFL talent in this conference than there is any other conference in the country, and the week in, week out grind of what that does in football, it's just different. And so, you add another conference game, you make the SEC title game. There's no doubt that that's going to play a role in your ability to stay healthy throughout the season.
You have $40 million rosters now. It's probably getting $60 million in the next year or two. Do you want the rev share cap removed, suspending who move freely, or would you like? You said that there's not a lot of governance, so people are doing what they can to get the roster up there. What's your take on how that should be done?
I think we're in a really interesting spot right now because if we don't find a way to create some level of regulation within the market, a lot of people are going to go bankrupt really quick, right? If this thing goes from where it's at to up another 20% to up another, we're 2.5 years away from having an NIL budget that's more than the TV revenue for all of our university. Right, and when that happens, you're going to have some serious questions about how that gets funded, and so, I think there's a lot of questions in that regard.
What did you learn about having gone through the playoff experience? You were just talking about like wear and tear of a season, the length, and all that. What were your takeaways experiencing it?
Yeah, I don't. Unfortunately for us, we didn't make the deep run, and so I don't know that it was a ton different. We played 12 and then won, and so that's kind of been the norm. I think the challenge, just as you study it or look at it as someone who wants to do this year, it's more when you start getting into that 14th game, 15th game, and more so how you manage that, and then how you manage that going into the next year, because I think that completely changes the entire cycle of your off season, your program. For us, we were 12+1, and so that's kind of the norm.
So it was normal off season, like.
For us, because we actually ended earlier than we would ever end playing. Whatever, I think it was December 19th or 20th was when the playoff game was, and so for us it was actually a longer break than we've ever been able to have before we started the off season.
Did the lack of a spring portal change how you manage spring practice?
Not from our perspective. I think we've always kind of coached how we've coached. I don't think we've ever coached in fear of the portal, and so I think obviously I think just the ability to have some real conversations post-spring about growth, development, not having to jade all of those conversations, to not rub somebody the wrong way, like that certainly plays a role, like where you can get into like, hey, here's some things I think you can really work on, and that probably mattered a little bit, but certainly you felt like it was better for the sport. I think when you put your roster together, and I've said this before, like when you put your roster together in January and then that's your roster to the end of the season, that certainly seems like it's in line with how it should be.
What's your relationship with the College Sports Commission so far, and is that how have y'all liked that model so far?
I haven't met him.
Okay.
Hey.
How much agreement do you think that there is within your meeting rooms with the other coaches about issues of governance, issues of playoff expansion? Like, do you think you guys are all largely on the same page, or is this sort of we're figuring it out as we go?
You say figure it out as you go. I don't know what we're trying to figure out. Like there's like you guys act like we're the ones figuring stuff out. Like we're not figuring anything out. You know that. Like we have no that's not we don't get to do that. Like we're allowed to get up here on media, and you guys like to put us up here because we get a lot of hits for you on social media. But like we're just voices and opinions. We're not figuring anything out.
But are your voices and opinions heard by the 80s?
No. Have they ever been?
Like you literally just said, like budgets are going to be more than what each school gets from their media rights. That's insanity. How do they not listen to you guys if you bring that up?
Why are you asking me?
No, that's right.
I don't know. Ask them.
Let me ask you a follow-up, because this maybe does have more to do with coaches. If there was some sort of financial regulation, which CSC, among other places, has tried to implement, what are the odds that everybody just says, okay, we'll follow this? Like, what's the stop? Like, isn't this just kind of constantly trying to one-up the next person?
Yeah, for sure. I think Listen, there's a lot that goes into this model, right? It's a unique model. College football has become very profitable. Certainly, the players deserve a big piece of that. Unlike professional sports, though, it's not profitable without the university, right? I don't think Texas A&M football is as profitable as it is without the alumni base of Texas A&M University that shows up at games, that supports it, that buys merchandise. And so it's a little bit of a unique give and take in that regard, because we can't go all into the business side of college football at the expense of the university, because if the university isn't there, college football isn't there, right? And so I think there's a lot that goes into that conversation. It's a deep dive into what the solutions are to it, because there's a lot that goes into it. Everybody wants to just get up here and say, oh, here's the solution. I mean, it's way, way deeper than any of that. And so I think you need to, that's again why I come back to governance. Like, there needs to be people in a room who are not acting on behalf of their own institution, conference, region, area, that can get in and figure it out. And we don't have any of that. So without that, I don't know how anything's going to get figured out.
Do you believe your colleagues within the coaching profession would follow the rules of governance if you had that, people follow the rules?
If there were rules that had consequences, like you look at the NFL as a model, right? And why do coaches not try to get an edge in the NFL? Because the rules are enforced, right? And so if you break the rules are enforced, so nobody can gain a competitive edge by usurping the cap or doing different things in free agency, or like you can't find ways around it, or practicing longer, or whatever, right? And so the problem with college sports is who's enforcing the rules. And so if there are rules that nobody's enforcing, and school A, B, and C are finding, then that just creates this waterfall of people trying to skirt things. And so I think that's really more like, what are the rules? How are they being enforced? Are they being enforced? If so, cool. That'd be awesome. I think most of my colleagues would agree with that. I think we're all probably skeptical of the fact that that's possible. And so then if it's not possible, then what are we talking about?
Does it feel like rules exist now?
No.
Feels like you might like a commissioner sort of.
How about a CEO? How about a billion-dollar industry has a CEO and a board? Something like that.
People not operating out of self-interest and giving up power for something like that?
I don't know. Probably.
There's been some conversation about the SEC having more autonomy to change rules and do things. What kinds of things would the league, you feel like, want to do that you're not able to do with the current governance structure?
Create some type of like, I think I'm not the only person frustrated by the lack of governance. And so if it comes more to an SEC model, then you at least have the ability to say, okay, this is like, we certainly have great leadership. Greg Sankey does a phenomenal job looking out for the best interests of the SEC. And so Greg can get in with the presidents and the ADs and the coaches, and we can come up with some type of decision about what's best for the SEC, go out there and enforce that. And if that provides some level of regulation or legislation within the SEC, I think that's why that's becoming more of a talking point, because that seems more attainable than anything else. There's nothing else that actually seems attainable when you look at where it currently stands.
Would you be down for it? You played in the Ivy League, worked at Merchant Marine Academy.
For being in charge of it all?
Yeah,
No.
wait, dude.
I'm
Notre Dame,
a
like,
football
you can
coach.
see it all.
I'm a football coach. No, like this is big business, right? Like this, I'm not like I'm very self-aware. Like I'm not telling you I have the answers. I just sit in and I kind of observe, and you can kind of see it. And so, the person who runs, I'm not qualified to run $1 billion college football enterprise. I don't think any coach is. I think this has got to be like there are really intelligent business people, and there are certainly people who are in charge of, Greg would be great if he was acting in, if he wasn't assigned to do what's best for the SEC. Greg does a great job of doing what's best for the SEC, as he should. Tony does a great job of doing what's best for the Big Ten, as he should. that's just kind of how it is.
Thank you, Coach.
Thank you, guys.